Ian.
Dave.
Ian, we have a guest on the show tonight, Victoria Scott, returning guest, show favorite, Victoria Scott. Welcome back to Apex Adjacent.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like we were talking about pre-recording, you're welcome to sully our show anytime. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just going to slam open the saloon doors.
I got something to say.
Yep. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. We're talking about an old Camry and yeah. So thank you for returning to the show. It has been so incredible to see your artistic output and the arc that you have taken recently. And so for anybody who may not be familiar with the last recent kind of artistic outputs and things like that, would you mind just kind of giving us some bullet points for somebody who might want to see what Victoria Scott's all about, photography, writing, etc.
When was the last time I was on?
We were talking about, I think, the Acura Integra S and the Civic Si, because we drove Hondas, which is going to come back later tonight, and we thought of
that was June of last year, right?
Yeah,
so that was
somewhere around there.
Coming up on a year ago. Okay, well, yeah. Since then, I mean, I did actually do the digital photo book. Since then, I compiled a little short story photography collection that was called Self-Portraits from My Past Lives. I went to a bunch of ghost towns in rural Montana and Idaho and did self-portraits in the middle of these living history villages, dressed in period garb, edited to look like era photography, and did little photo stories with those. So that was fun. That was mostly to keep myself from going insane because I lived in rural Idaho and I needed something to do.
Right.
I moved to Seattle afterward. I bought a $600 Toyota Camry, fixed it up, moved to Seattle, managed to get a place here, got a full-time job working as a staff writer with Motor One, which has been phenomenally cool. I'm writing a lot of stories I really like. And then I am in the process. We just opened pre-orders in the past month, and we should be hopefully shipping end of April, I think, maybe early May. Don't hold me to that. But for my 2-year-long project to shoot, write, and compose a trans femme fashion lookbook with an automotive theme. It's called We Deserve This. It'll be published by Carrera Books, who published my last physical book, Postcards from the End of the World, that was released January of last year. So it's been busy. I've also been doing tons of film photography. I don't currently have a car because the Camry exploded, which I'm sure we can get to.
Yes.
But there's a bunch of I've been shopping. I'm looking for new ones, so that's been fun. But yeah, there's been a bunch of really cool artistic stuff. I have a half broken Niker mat on my desk right now. This is my life. They're just film cameras kind of scattered around me. Nice. If you killed me in combat, I would drop 7 old Nikon. That would be my loot.
You've managed to very well organize your inventory to fit the thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I always joke about there's the that thing in oh my god, the trope in action movies where the guy always has knives and guns stashed everywhere, and I'm like that with contact lenses because I wear daily wear contacts. So I have there's a non-zero number of my contact lenses in Dave's house right now. Mm-hmm. And I feel that's what you're doing with the film cameras. Anywhere an intruder would come and you could just spin around and pull out a camera.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I've got a 6-shooter with instead of bullet cartridges, it's just got rolls of Portra inside of it.
Right. Yeah. It's like Russian roulette, but with ISO numbers instead.
I did that recently. It was not fun. I don't recommend it. It was a complete mistake.
That's hilarious.
Right on. Yeah.
Photography nerd jokes.
Yeah, great. I love it. Yeah. No, this is so great. Also, those cameras, from that era, do double as blunt weapons. So, yeah.
This is this is a consumer grade one, so it doesn't have the removable prism, but this is sharp and metal. You could break a car window with it. Which is, I guess, kind of nice if I need to break a car window.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Right? Yeah.
Well, hopefully you'll have fewer of those situations now that you are no longer in rural Idaho.
That is the hope. Which
was the whole reason I wanted to have you on was the Camry article was fantastic, and I really enjoyed it because, like, I don't know, a lot of the car discourse lately has been, not great. It's been a lot of Cybertruck. It's been a lot of pedestrian safety, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah.
So it was really nice to read something again about a car being a lifeline, which I think is, the way that I think a lot of us kind of get introduced to cars is it's your lifeline out of, whatever you got going on at home when you're a teenager, which is usually, less than ideal.
Yeah, the cars have filled that role for me repeatedly. Like my first car was a Supra.
Mm-hmm.
And that car was so important to me because I bought it when I was 20. I was still living at home with my parents. Backstory that's maybe kind of crucial here is like I was raised very religious and homeschooled from kindergarten through 12th grade, and I lived at home during college. So buying that car was like, it was the first thing I ever disobeyed my parents on. I was like, yeah, no, I want this really badly. I have the money because I've worked and I'm going to buy this. And that was kind of my first step towards independence. So, I did that. I bought, I had my van, obviously, which was like that was a big step for me in terms of, figuring out who I wanted to be and, I don't know, escaping basically a life that I had felt had become suffocating. Mm-hmm. And then the Camry was, just physically what I needed at that moment. So yeah, it's a story that I've told a bunch of times, but I feel like every time at a different period of my life, the story is a little bit different. And the car is always, it's been a Toyota every time, which is kind of funny.
Right. I was just putting that together, like Supra, the van, the Camry. Yeah.
So, they've gotten me through various phases of my life, but they've always fulfilled that kind of like emotional role of like being something that other change is enacted by. So the Camry was just the latest in the line of that. Hopefully the next one is like fancier. I wouldn't mind if the next one was like, oh yeah, this Lexus LC500 helped me go on a luxurious vacation. That one, I need to pitch that to Lexus, I think. Like, hey, can you transform my life again, but can we do it with like cooled seats?
Yeah, right? Yeah. My blood pressure would be a lot lower if I saw that than if I saw like, oh, Victoria's bought herself a used Yaris. What the hell is going on? Is she okay? Yeah.
But that piece was really fun, and I was excited that I got to write it for Motor One because I'd actually been sitting on that for a little bit. I made the move in October of last year, and that story ran in January just after I started the full-time job. And I had really had a hard time landing it somewhere just because people didn't have a lot of budget for it and people were kind of into it, but it's not really, I think, it's not pertinent to anything. It was an 89 Camry, it was just a story that I thought was fun to tell. And so I was really glad they let me tell it.
Absolutely.
Well, that's kind of what I mean. It's sort of like the anti-discourse sort of article, which is so nice, like if you are just living, if you're terminally online or just, watching cable news or whatever, you're just like in the discourse all the time. It's nice to like get reminded like, oh yeah, there's like people out here living lives and shit. Like, there's other things going on.
Right. Go ahead, Victoria. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say the other part of it I really like too is, that car was $600. I put maybe 500 in it. Most of that was tires because it needed them.
Yeah.
But I think the big thing for me is, when I was in Idaho, freelancing was tight. I didn't really have a whole lot of money. I don't do this with like a trust fund or anything. I live off of writing. So that can be challenging at times. And so there's a disconnect between even the stuff that I'm writing, going out and covering the Integra Type S, which was incredible kind of fun. That's an incredible car for its price for the other cars on the market today. It's a great value, but also, it's still $55,000, which is not something that I can realistically envision right now. And I think that there's a lot of people who enjoy cars who are not in a new car space who want to see something that's like a little bit more relatable from a kind of that bottom end of the market, sort of the I made what I had work. And that's always been what's so compelling to me about car culture in general. And so that story was perfect for that kind of thing. And I think that's part of the reason it felt so anti-discourse, is because it was like, well, here is pure chaos, the vehicle I've chosen to deliver me from it. And, it was making do with what I had. I literally had $600 and I was like, cool, this is what I can afford.
Yeah. And it is sort of like, not to like beat on this whole discourse thing too much, but like a lot of it has been, again, like Cybertruck and Apple Car and all of that stuff. And I think a lot of the like private equity, Silicon Valley sort of brain of like, everything's way overfunded and terrible ideas. And this is sort of the inverse of that, right? Like you've got lots of ideas and very little resources. And that is way more compelling of a story to read. It's more enjoyable than the opposite, which is you had all of the resources in the entire world and you came up with a really sharp toaster.
Right. Like what story from like any recent period of time do you feel like truly gives the reader an opportunity to empathize with the writer, right? And have a car through line associated with it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that one of the fantastic things about your writing is that you consistently provide these really wonderful opportunities to empathize and to understand and to experience something through your eyes. And I think that it just makes the reader better for it. Like,
thank you.
Yeah, I don't know.
Thank you.
It was a fantastic article. I reread it again today. My wife read it. We were sitting on the couch together and I just heard her go through the arc that you crafted, right? Like just in, 10 minutes or so, and like, it was just really like, it was just great seeing that, like that impact that landed on me and being provided through your creativity and opportunity to be empathetic and seeing someone else go through that same arc. It was really cool. And so, yeah, it's a great article. YouTube link is in the description, obviously, or in the YouTube description. But yeah, we'll definitely retweet and stuff like that. But yeah, Thanks. Everyone needs to read this. Yeah, it's fantastic, and it's so against the grain. It's such a it's an amuse-bouche of automotive writing. Yeah,
thank you. I think my favorite compliment that I've been getting more recently is that a bunch of people will say to me like, I don't like cars. Or I've never liked cars, or I've never cared about cars, but I like your writing. And that to me is like the highest praise, because that I think is what I'm going for. Is I want, we all have these things in our lives, especially as Americans. We all go through, I would say, or a lot of us go through like really emotional things, journeys or experiences with these cars. And I think that, just by flipping it a little bit, you can kind of tell the story of the car and yourself together. And so I'm glad it resonates with people, and I'm glad that people who don't necessarily love car culture also still can enjoy them, because that I think that means that it's like deeper than just car writing, and I want it to be good writing. So yeah, I want it to be good and car writing.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah.
George W. Bush mission accomplished banner unfurls behind you. Yeah.
But it actually means something this time. Yeah. This is not about me in any way, but I do want you to know that I had that exact year and exact color of Camry with the maroon interior. And so seeing that picture, I can smell that car, right? Like, I'm intimately familiar with how garbage that transmission is if it is unmaintained. The car that I had was stolen from somebody's apartment complex. Somebody did, I guess, tried revving through that 1-2 shift and blew the engine. Smash cut to a guy that I worked with, like just doing a crate swap or junkyard swap, and me buying it for $500 or whatever. But so this Camry, and tons of people have had that that Camry, right?
So many people told me like I had that generation, and a lot of people told me the same thing. Like I had maroon, which apparently they must have sold a ton of, because like I had so many people be like, "Wow, that's my old car," and usually the story went, "That's my old car, I had it for 300,000 miles. It, I did a bunch of stuff with it. And then like, a semi truck rear-ended it or something. And it was like, it was always like, it never ended with like, it just died. It was always like, either I sold it to a kid or I put it through a tree or, it ended up in somebody's living room. Like it takes a lot to kill those things.
Yeah.
Or it takes one last ditch effort trip to get to Seattle in my case, because the car does die at the end of the story. Yeah. The piece was a eulogy. Like that was actually kind of my emotional intention going into it, was I was like, this car saved my life. I have to do it properly. And I always am like, I had to, when I had driven the van, obviously I loved that thing. And last year when I was broke, I had to sell it because the transmission didn't work. And I couldn't find anybody to work on it. And I had nowhere to work on it. And, you just reach a point where you're like, well, I got nothing. And it was having compression issues, I think, maybe, I have no idea. It had a lot of rust the whole time. It got sold to some shop out in Bend, and I probably will never see it again. And so, like, the only reason that I was able to kind of come to terms with that, this very emotional, like, home of mine moving on, was that I had written about it so much, and I had photographed it so much. And I knew that it was, objects can't live forever. Entropy is just kind of the way of things, but I can at least document it, which I think is part of the reason that, I do what I like. I'm wired like this. That's why I like photography so much. It's why I like writing so much. I think I'm just, I like fixing old things so much. Is like, I'm just trying to get as much mileage out of everything possible.
Yeah.
Because there is like, one of the things I thought about when I was writing that story, the intro is very, they made it 300,000. I don't have it up. I probably should actually have up my own story that I wrote.
We have it. Yeah.
It was like 275,000 or 260,000.
You had it right up the top. 255,252
cameras.
Yeah. But there was an entire team of people who engineered that car from the ground up, and then a bunch of people who put it together, and then it's been through however many people's hands before it got to me. And it's like, I don't know. It feels like there's a, I think part of, that whole sort of the Apple car, Cybertruck, shiny new thing mentality, which autojournalism does have to be about. We do have to review new cars. A lot of it is, I think, dismissive of the amount of effort that goes into even making a bad thing. And so it feels like writing a story that commemorates the effort that went into making a good thing is like a worthwhile dedication to the people who tried. I don't know how else to put it.
I like that. Yeah.
And I think some of it of the approach to Cybertruck and the approach to Apple, and I think some of the reporting has kind of touched on this, but not, I don't think with like really head on, is sort of like the hubris of saying like, we're going to be able to do this differently than everybody else has done it for 100 years. And how, they're kind of like cutting out suppliers and doing things in-house and, that sort of stuff. And what you're kind of talking about is almost a bit of a metaphor for like the idea that our fates are intertwined. Like your fate of getting out of Idaho was somehow intertwined with a factory worker, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Which is a kind of a beautiful and crazy thing to think about.
Yeah, I think that like that worldview also stems pretty naturally from being a socialist, where it's like, workers actually do make a lot of things happen, and I feel like I need to point that out when I can.
Right, and that's sort of the opposite framing of the story of like, this great man is bestowing a Cybertruck upon us.
Yeah,
right?
I mean. Right. Every good thing I've ever said about Teslas, because I do have my contentions with them, but they have excellent battery technology. I've been doing we've got a series coming later this year. It's going to be so much fun. I can't super duper talk about it, but I have been doing a lot of research about historic electric vehicles. And Tesla did accomplish like a lot of really cool stuff. Very dedicated researchers figured out how to make lithium-ion batteries work en masse at price points that were reasonable, really, really effectively and very early for the market. Same thing with like the engineers at Nissan who developed the Leaf, and cool parts of like going on press trips for me lately has been we've got a series of engineering stories we've been writing on Motor One. I've been kind of mixing those in with the rest of my stories. But, I'll go to a press trip, and if I see something cool that I think is like a technology worth featuring, I might get to talk to the engineer who helped design it, who led the design on it. I did that recently with the Lexus GX and the EKD-SS, which is their basically electronic sway bar disconnect for off-roading. Okay. It works seamlessly. It's not actually like a switched mechanism. It can couple and decouple in motion based on how it senses the terrain, like dropping from it. It's incredibly cool. Yeah, it's fascinating. But also, like, you get to talk to these people who have spent 3 or 4 years of their life developing this thing, and you just gain an entirely new perspective on it. And I think that kind of has been in the back of my mind with a lot of these stories. So like the Camry pieces like that. I've been doing some classic car stories for Motor One too. There's like the Beat and the S600 comparison. I don't know if you saw that one. But that was, I drove a 92 Honda Beat and a 66 Honda S600 back to back. And you get to look at you get to look at the progression over 30 years, basically, of Honda from, a company that started selling motorized bicycles and had gotten to, we make really good motorcycles, let's try making cars, to we rule the world in cars, basically. Right. We are the kings of naturally aspirated engines. And it's so cool to see that kind of progression in technology and, recognize all the just absurd amounts of research and development that went into doing that. I don't know. It's very cool to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it is development with the goal of permanence, right? Instead of development with the goal of repeated consumerism.
Yeah, or winning the day.
Yeah. And well, I love
right.
like
yeah,
exactly, right?
Oh, I love this camera. Like, I got a set of new light seals for it, and somebody makes zinc air batteries to replace the original mercury ones that were inside these things. But like this camera is, I think, this is an FTN, so like probably the late 60s, maybe early 70s. Yeah, this camera is probably as old as my dad is. Yeah. And I'm going to go out and shoot with it. It feels great.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. I was just telling Dave before we started that I just dropped off a bunch of my vintage stereo equipment to get refurbished, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. And it was like, some of it was my grandfather's, so, I mean, it's like 50 some years old.
Yeah.
And it's still just like chugging along. Just going to get some new capacitors. That's about it.
I mean, remember when we would pick up a stereo receiver and be able to tell if it was good or not just by how hard it was to pick up?
Right.
Yeah.
Remember, that's what I have.
Yeah. As you should. Yeah.
I've got like a 40 or probably 30-year-old JVC sitting in my living room right now.
Fantastic. I'm still kicking myself.
I have Technics this tall.
Yes.
Like,
right? Yeah. Yeah. I'm still kicking myself for getting rid of a Pioneer that I had, that vintage Pioneer.
Yeah.
Damn it, Severnuk. Yeah. But yeah, no. The emotional connections that we have are obviously so well established. I always want, I'm always compelled to recognize the grief that comes associated with a vehicle's departure from our lives, right? Because I think that that's such a valid part of the vehicle ownership experience, is that kind of grief post-vehicle exit. Sometimes it's like, good, get rid of this fucking thing, right? But I think for the ones that really, like your Turbo X.
I was going to say, sometimes it's both, because...
Well, you were grieving the idea of the vehicle.
Right.
Yeah. You wanted to give the real thing a Viking funeral.
Yeah, my Saab was like, it was supposed to be our family car, and it was a bit of a disaster. Like, it had cooling system issues, it had brake booster issues, it had all sorts of, I mean, it was a basket case, and it needed to go because it was supposed to transport 2 small children around, and it didn't do so reliably.
Yeah.
But I was sad to see it go, and also my life is immeasurably better because it's gone.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about my Supra.
Yeah.
I mean, I missed that car because it was incredibly cool. I learned how to I learned how to drift in it. I went autocrossing in it. I learned how to wrench on it. But also, it was broken all of the time. And because I was an idiot 23 or 24-year-old or however old I was, I was daily driving it with no heat and a welded diff and, enormous like aftermarket Mercedes-Benz brakes, frankincense swapped in with like EBC yellow stuffs in them. And so just like, it was just not, it was before I understood that cars needed to be even a little tiny bit practical. It had a good rear seat for no reason. It just bumped me up a class. I just thought it was cool. It was stupid. It was required. Yeah. You have to do that. But also, it's gone.
Like a loved one, you make excuses for it, right? Like you're like, but it's, it was from a different time.
They've got a great sense of humor.
Right. Yeah. Grandma means well.
Yeah. No, I think that like the doing honor to the people that work so hard on the development of the vehicle, like the people that were like, Toyota was putting all of Toyota into that vehicle, right? Like you were saying.
Oh my God, yeah. That's like peak Toyota.
Right?
That and like the LS400 where they're, we're going to spend as much money as we possibly can.
Yeah.
Efforts at the time.
Yeah. And when those vehicles depart, when they die, when whatever happens, like recognizing that effort, that monumental engineering effort, like makes me feel better about it. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. It just makes my time with that car feel more precious, right? Yeah. I don't know. I had an Infiniti M45 Sport, 2006. I loved it so much. It was just dumb, and it got 15 miles to the gallon, and I was commuting all the time. When COVID hit, I was saving $250 a month on gas alone.
Yeah.
Right?
But
like Infiniti, Nissan put all of it into that vehicle, right? And like just knowing that I recognize like how truly like great even just its sun visors were, like makes me like just happy to have owned that car,
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. There's a lot like that. Ugh.
Right? I do have
plenty of automotive regrets. Anyway, go ahead.
No. I was going to make an unfortunate transition, segue to the article that you have coming out today. It came out mere hours after this or before this posts.
Yes.
Yeah. Which may be representative of some maybe recent automotive engineering failures. Yeah.
Well, I think it's part of the recognizing that people matter kind of train of thought. There has been an ongoing pedestrian death crisis in America for, arguably 15 years at this point. They hit an all-time nadir of about 4,600 in 2010, and then they have just endlessly increased. They dipped a little bit in the first half of last year, but they're tracking around 7,500 people a year, which, as I put it in my article, is 18 fully loaded 747s crashing with no survivors per year.
Yeah,
which is a lot of people. Like that, I think that helps contextualize it a lot because we do not tolerate that amount of death in the aviation industry, as we shouldn't. I'm not saying we should start doing this.
Boeing's taking that as good news. Yeah, see, we're fine.
So I've read a bit and listened to some news stories and stuff on this recently. I haven't gotten a chance to read your article yet because it's not out yet. But as we're recording this. But I think one of the things that's really interesting about this story is that, like, I know that this is sort of a global phenomenon in recent years, right? But America is an outlier in that it's much higher, and there's lots of competing theories as to why that is. Is that I don't know if you come to a conclusion in your article, but do you have any like favorites of the theories? Because there's some really interesting ones.
Well, so that's the thing that I kind of tried to figure out. Deaths are up since the pandemic began globally a bit, but they are much worse in America and over a much longer time span, which suggests there's other factors in play. The pandemic definitely drove a bit of the more recent surge, but it's been trending upward for over a decade. And the thing is, you look at the pandemic, what causes that? In America, at least, my theory is that it's largely induced by the same factors that are causing increased deaths of despair, right? Mm-hmm. Alcoholism is up. That causes a lot more DUIs. People are generally less careless. They speed more. That causes a bit more because, it's logarithmic with deaths in terms of vehicle speed. If you get hit at 20 miles an hour, you're probably going to be okay. You will, like, it's going to hurt, and you might, you're going to be healing for a while, but it's very unlikely that you'll die. If you get hit at 45, your risk is about 75%. If you get hit at like 55 miles an hour, you're almost certainly dying. And so it's one of those things where it's like doing 10 over can be the difference between somebody surviving and dying. So that becomes a big factor. So I would say that's probably part of it. Distracted driving is up. From the data I could find, it's difficult to get exact telemetry because a lot of accident reports don't include it. People don't really self-report super honestly. There's a few studies that have been looked into about, vehicles moving while phones are used and trying to monitor like driver eye patterns and stuff. It tends towards the idea that distracted driving causes more accidents and that it's on the rise, but it's hard to get exact numbers. But that also, is probably leading to at least some of this. The other factors, though, that are different is America's roads are designed terribly. We have just completely ignored the needs of pedestrians in almost all road designs in America. And so you have unlit intersections. I spoke with David Markey, who is the president of the IAHS for this piece, to get kind of his thoughts. And he mentioned a lot of the stuff that's, like at the Vision Zero initiative, which is better lit intersections. We need more chicanes. We need, slower speed limits. We need investment in infrastructure that weights pedestrians with the same importance as drivers, which is politically challenging in a lot of places. Even in Seattle, which is a very pro-pedestrian, pro-cyclist place for America, it's still challenging to get buy-in for measures that make driving slower. Nobody wants their commute to go up, and people with cars generally drive more policy in the US because they usually have more money and they usually are a more noticeable voting bloc. So that's part of it. The other part that is kind of what I find myself focusing on a lot is because it's not being mitigated. We're slowly working on road design. We're slowly working on, driver monitoring. The IAHS is testing for headlights to try to help with nighttime visibility. Drunk driving is already illegal. Right. There's a lot of distracted driving initiatives. A lot of them aren't really doing a whole lot. Even speed cameras don't really seem to be making a huge effect. There's some areas in like New Jersey where they've had success, but by and large, they're still trending upward. Even in, a Vision Zero city is Portland. They've had just absolutely no impact on levels of deaths. And they've implemented a lot of suggestions from Vision Zero, and they're still seeing higher rates of fatalities than they have previously. And so the thing that I've kind of honed in on is cars are too big. Yeah. Which is, there is so much more data on this than you think. And that's kind of what I was shocked by, is there was that big IAHS study last year that I spoke with David about, where they found that if your car is over 40 inches high, it's basically the hood height, rather. Yeah. You're leading striking edge when you're hitting a pedestrian. The risk of death shoots up by like 45%. But there are. This was just last year. So IAHS just commissioned this piece. So they haven't been testing for hood height and stuff because they didn't have this data before. But everybody else has, like, we've known this. There are studies dating back to, I think, 2014 or 16 that show that, being hit by a light truck, so any crossover, SUV, pickup truck, minivan, whatever, is equivalent to like 6 miles an hour more than getting hit by an equivalent sedan. So you're at, again, and when you're talking about logarithmic curves here, like that is a lot. Right. They're because visibility is so bad in minivans and trucks. There's a lot more people who get hit on left turns when they should be protected. They're in a crosswalk. There's obviously bigger blind spots. There's been a huge increase in the number of deaths of children in like parking lots because people can't see even when moving forward. There's a study that was done that suggests that every I think it was 30 centimeters. I should probably actually have the study up instead of just spitballing it. My memory is really sharp on this because it has been taking up I've worked 2.5 weeks on this piece, basically. It has been, this is the other component of automotive journalism I like. The Camry piece this is my relatable car culture is for all of us. This is what I love about it. And then this is like, I think that something needs to change and I want to help make people aware of it. me see if I can find that number, because now I actually want to be correct.
Yeah, no problem.
Let's see.
It is crazy too, like the idea of like the hood height of being taller than the entire car of a GT40.
Yeah. Right.
It's insane.
It's 3.9 inches, so like 10 centimeters. Is a 22% higher risk of death.
Jeez.
Wow.
So the Fortnine did a video on this recently too, because this study is pretty recent. But that translates, like, with trucks that have these extra large hoods on them, it works up to somewhere around like over 500 excess deaths a year in America.
Yeah.
And the thing is I focus in on this because nobody has addressed it. IIHS is doing studies on pedestrian detection at night. Everybody's NHTSA is moving towards making it mandatory. Detection systems, headlights are now getting tested. But nobody is actually testing pedestrian impacts in the US. Europe has been doing it for 25,
a long time.
28 years.
Like, the popping hoods come out of stuff like that, right?
Yeah. And
right.
The whole reason we don't have pop-up headlights is because the Europeans said this wasn't good for pedestrian impacts. We have to do away with them.
Right.
Because they started testing in 97, which is, they were already on their way out then, but that was really the final death knell for them. And then you look at US policy. NHTSA hasn't done anything as far as regulating vehicle size. And the EPA has accidentally caused vehicles to get bigger, and they've recently just admit this themselves. I did a story years ago where I delved into the CAFE standards, the combined average fuel economy. So that was our corporate average fuel economy. So that's every manufacturer has to meet certain fuel economy requirements. Those get less stringent if the car is bigger. Is basically how it ended up working out.
Snap. No way.
By both footprint and by light truck. So light trucks are held to a much lower standard than sedans. In the piece that I had originally done, what I did was I delved into what makes a light truck. And it's an interesting set of requirements. All minivans qualify, all pickup trucks qualify because of having a bed or a fold flat storage floor. What's interesting about it is vehicles need to have all-wheel drive, which there's no distinction legally between four and all-wheel drive. So you can that's everything that's been sold with all-wheel drive as an option. That's one of the criteria it's got to meet. The next one is a certain amount of approach angle, which is, if you look at a bunch of modern cars, they all hit it. Like the Lexus RX 300, like that weird front end on it that they gave it there for a few years, was to meet that minimum approach requirement. A specific breakover angle, a specific axle height, and then I think an overall height. They have to meet like 4 of these 5 criteria. And by using that metric, the Subaru Crosstrek is a light truck. Because it mathematically meets all those requirements. And so then it is way easier to get your fuel economy down. And of course, when you're enforcing minimum vehicle heights, you're making cars taller.
Right, right.
When you're like, we need this much approach and this much departure and this much clearance, your car has to just get higher. So you're de facto raising hood heights.
Right.
And the EPA has even admitted that its footprint-based rule for all cars has inadvertently encouraged manufacturers to make them bigger. Which was kind of like we know, guys. But it's good of them to admit it. But so, official U.S. policy has been get a bigger car. And then the response to this from the industry has been, it's demonstrably true. Small cars are now less safe. This is another fun one in here that's just like, you don't even want to know. Every 220 pounds added to a car's weight equates to a 14% higher risk it kills somebody in another car.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Holy.
So
yeah,
you're much more likely to survive yourself in a big car, but you're more likely to kill the other person. And in a zero-sum unregulated environment, people act in self-rational self-interest, we can assume, which means they buy a bigger car. IIHS doesn't even recommend young drivers buy compacts anymore. They're like, you should probably go like medium or bigger because you're going to get killed if you crash.
Yeah.
Which,
like,
of course,
the army surplus. Yeah, get that. Yeah.
Well,
sorry,
and I mean, and so the whole thing is just it's what we have to do is we need to implement all of these unpopular fixes. We need to our roads. We have to actually spend money. We have to prioritize pedestrians, even if they don't seem like they're as valuable as drivers in terms of the time that's spent or the money that's spent. It's got to be catered to. We need manufacturers to keep working on pedestrian detection stuff. I think that's invaluable. There's a lot of false positives. I talked to David about this. It didn't actually make it into the final cut of the story because there's no neat way to work it into the narrative. But we talked about how like these systems only work if people leave them on. And I have to just hope that people are leaving them on. But that's kind of the thing, right? It's like, please leave them on. The false positives or whatever are annoying, and I totally get it. But that might save somebody's life. That's what it's there for. And the other thing too is, we need to start testing for pedestrian impacts here. We need to start regulating the hood height of trucks. We can make this better very easily. I went out and measured some trucks in the street to get an idea of what 40 inches is, just to mentally put things. I think I measured a 95 like Toyota pickup that was parked in front of my apartment building. It was 36 inches or something. It's under 40.
Yeah.
You can still have a useful truck. It's not lifted. It's not, aggressive. And the thing is trying to convince people to adopt these changes can be tricky because in the meantime, it's going to make them less safe. I don't know how to convince, the whole pitch of the story is basically like, we all have to work together on this or it's just going to keep happening.
Yeah. This is sort of like my unified theory about everything in the US right now, which is, and it kind of goes back to something I mentioned in the Camry story too, which is that we have a real fundamental lack of leadership around the idea that your fate is tied to my fate. And that was sort of really highlighted during the pandemic, right? Where I think all of the societies around the world, all of their failings really got a spotlight on them. Whatever their particular thing was, the Italians couldn't not go out and eat, and the Chinese,
we couldn't stop saying, fuck you, I got mine,
Right. Yeah. We couldn't not be selfish. Right. And China couldn't not share information, you know what I mean? They couldn't be communicative. But the idea that everyone is an island here has been really a really cancerous thing in our kind of politics for the last 40 years. And I think this is a really good example of that, where it's a real bad negative feedback loop, right? Where I'm protecting myself by getting a larger car, which is hurting somebody else, but then they're going to get a larger car and then I need to get a larger. So you get this terrible arms race and you can't see it, how to unfuck it.
Right.
Yeah.
And everybody knows it is the thing, because I remember I read one of the last freelance pieces I did before I took this full-time job, which I did really enjoy doing. It was a passion piece. I published it at Road and Track. It was about this. It was a cultural critique of the Cybertruck, was what I called it.
Yeah.
And I didn't focus on any of its performance. I didn't focus on any of its engineering claims. What I focused on was what the cultural image it was trying to project was. And I remember, a lot of the imagery and the sort of advertising and the statements that Musk made about that were so. There was something about I think he had said on Twitter that if you get in an argument with another car, you're going to win.
Yeah, it's bulletproof and
it's bulletproof. It's going to win an argument with another car, something along those lines. And it's just one of those things where it's it's so he's just saying what I'm saying as a good thing. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm saying it. That's the thing is I fundamentally think that, my opponents and I on this probably agree on more of the reality than we don't.
Oh, that's an
I
interesting
think
way to
that
put
we
it,
just look at whether they're a good or a bad thing in different ways. I think
you
it's
agree
a
on
bad
the facts
thing.
of the case.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
I agree. The Cybertruck is a vehicle that is designed to destroy other cars.
Yeah.
I don't think that we should have that because we live in a society.
Yeah, well, and the difference is punctuation. Yours ends in a period, and theirs ends in an exclamation point.
Yeah,
and it has the devil horns emoji after.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's I think that's what I'm trying to say too. Is that's where I think the lack of leadership thing kind of comes in, which is it's not good for you if you are just winning an argument, right? If a pedestrian dies on the other side of a city, that's bad for you. And I think that convincing people of that is what's hard, right? And that was the same thing during the pandemic. Like, if the person down the street from you, if the person at the grocery store dies, that's bad for you eventually, right? And it wasn't even like convincing people that they should be compassionate or anything like that. I think it's like there's a real like selfish, like Hannah Arendt sort of thing to convince people of there, and that is lost in this argument in this story as well. Sometimes of like, you know, it's bad for everybody if nobody can walk around a city without being mowed over.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Is like this could be. I think that this would like dramatically reshape American life to be much better if we could actually like get fatalities down and build friendlier cities to pedestrians. Because then you can go like I walk all the time. I live in the middle of Seattle. Like I don't live in like the surrounding area of Seattle. I am in Seattle, which is exactly what I wanted, and I love it. And I walk to the grocery store. You know, I get press cars. My Camry exploded, so I haven't had a car for 4 months now. And I mean, there are times when I would be like, yeah, I would really not like to carry this cat litter. And I will call a friend and be like, please, I need to borrow your car. I can't carry 50 pounds of sand up the hill again. But, you know, I mean, for the most part, like I use it very infrequently and I like walking a lot. And it means that like, you know, I shoot more pictures. I've been doing a lot of film photography because I'm naturally walking around. I get to like enjoy the weather. I'm way healthier. I'm in the best health of my life. Inadvertently, because I just walk everywhere. And so, you know, I think that like it would provide benefits to people that, you know, they would actively reap. I think the biggest thing for me is just like, I don't know if I like to the point of the 18 jumbo jets, right? Like that's the thing is when a plane crashes, I feel like people pay attention because it is mass death. And it is like necessarily a spectacular failure that reveals that engineering went wrong. And I'm trying to contextualize this to you that like, this is also a spectacular failure of engineering that is killing lots of people. And you just can't like, I don't know how else to convince people that like caring about other people is worth it. Like I actually had conversations with my editor, who's been great. Kyle also, he does a column for us. You should read it. It's called The Canardia Line. It's really good. But we were talking about it a lot because like, you know, he's a father. You know, I walk all the time, and we were both talking about like, how do you convince other people that caring about other people's lives is worthwhile? Right. And I don't know how else to do it other than to tell people like it doesn't have to be this way. I think that that's kind of like the overriding kind of, if people take away one thing from this story, it can just be that it doesn't have to be this way. We can, like this is tangible. There are a lot of things that I think feel very out of reach, but we could get there, you know, with the 5 decisions, right? And like in 2030, we could be looking back at this as like an unmitigated a tragedy rather, but like one that we stopped, and we're no longer dealing with this kind of loss and death.
Well, and I think that's one thing that you know what I was trying to say about like it's bad for that person is, you know, it's more expensive just for you as a taxpayer, even if you never walk around a city and your children never walk around a city, they're always going to be in a car. I mean, first of all, having a lower hood height is going to save you money eventually, right? Like it's going to be more fuel efficient and all that sort of stuff. But also like it's real expensive for society when people die prematurely, which is why we collectively try to prevent that from happening. And it's more expensive to scrape someone off the road and then lose all of that productivity from the economy. Like if you want to put it like in a really like cold terms for somebody who lives in the suburbs, that's what you have to do.
The problem is that you can't quite get to that point, because if you go into just economically valuing people, the people that get hit, generally speaking, are societally devalued. Like Portland last year, I think, 70% of their pedestrian fatalities were unhoused people.
Right.
Which people who don't vote, people who don't pay a lot of taxes, people whose lives are systemically devalued. You know, a majority of like for these fatal accidents occur in like neighborhoods of people primarily of color. Like because these roads have been designed in such a way to prioritize the people who are passing through these areas.
Yeah, or getting out of them. Right,
to get to their economically productive jobs. And so I guess the thing for me is like, if you just try to play the economics game on it, you can still get to a point where you're like, well, we've reached acceptable losses. And I think my thinking on it is like, I don't like we have the tools to make it so we don't need to lose people, and we shouldn't. Like it doesn't. We're not spending infinite money, right? Like this isn't the problem of like, well, we shouldn't send astronauts to space until rocket ships are perfectly safe. It's not like it's an impossible thing. We're not trying to build the perfectly safe rocket ship. We're trying to build non-lethal streets, and that's I think the thing is like it does require people like look at this as a means of like valuing other people's lives, I think is really what it comes down to. And that's like the hard part in America, I think, is that like it's that there's a lot of people who kind of bristle at that, I think, because it's impinging on their perceived freedoms. And I guess, that's really the tricky part, because like I can definitely see a lot of people who I've just read the arguments doing this piece about like people who don't think that those lives actually matter as much. And the value of a human life is actually fairly low in terms of like what the U.S. government categorizes it as in a lot of cases, which it gets weird at a certain point, because you're like, well, we could just get rid of this traffic light near this school, and like if it kills 3 kids a year, but it saves 16 million in productivity, it's worth it. Like, and that's I think kind of what I shied away from with this piece, just because like
you don't want to get into like actuarial tables and stuff like that.
I really don't. I think that like people dying is bad.
Yeah,
that's my controversial position.
No, I completely agree.
I'm a filthy commie. I think that people dying is bad.
Yes, I told you. Yes, told you. It'd be good for comedic effect.
I do have something, but I want you to make. I want you to.
Yeah. I am not trying to say. We should do like a cost benefit analysis of like every human life. But I have kind of gotten to this point of like, I think that before you can ask somebody to be empathetic or
that might not naturally be compelled that way.
Right.
Yeah.
That you have to play that game of explaining why you are linked together at all. Like why?
Yeah.
Right.
The butterfly over there is affecting the weather over here. And because I think that idea is just gone. Right. Like, like the bridge collapse in Baltimore this, just a couple days ago or yesterday, I guess that was. I mean, horrendous thing. I think it's only in these sorts of times that people realize like, oh, I'm not going to get my PlayStation on time now.
Yeah.
Right. Like things happen on the other side of the world and it affects me.
Right.
Yeah. And I think people have to have that sink into their skulls first, and then they can get to empathy. But I don't know. I don't know anything better than anybody else either. So.
Like to kind of touch on something that we were talking about before we started, we joined the call earlier today. We were talking about asbestos, like an asbestos abatement, right?
Oh yeah.
And I think that
I have an old house.
Yeah. And I used to live in an old house. And so we shaved some years off of our lives, probably. Hey, who hasn't? But I think that like, it was a little bit easier when it was like, oh shit, like asbestos is causing cancer. Like we need to get rid of it. We're going to have these abatement programs for HUD housing and lead abatement and stuff like that, right? Some proper like government backed remediation plans and a path moving forward. That was something that we could all kind of get behind. Now, if asbestos somehow allowed people to have like to do a quarter mile in 9 seconds and like gave them like heated seats, then I think they would have a lot harder time like getting rid of it. Like there's so many things that people like in these vehicles. They can't see that like you're still going to have a thing that is just as good. You're still going to get all your stuff, but like it's just going to not fucking slaughter people at intersections anymore. Right. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it's much easier if it's like that binary and you're not getting a creature comfort. Like,
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
and I think the hard part too is that, it's telling somebody like, you're probably going to need to like stop having that big truck. Like that is, I don't even think it's the creature comfort at that point. I think it's pretty much a status thing. And like people do not take, like the US is built entirely on the myth of rugged individualism and the consumption of high status products. So like telling somebody like, hey, you can't have that big expensive truck is challenging. Like I would not want to walk into a bar in Texas and publicly state this proposal. I feel like it's a bad idea.
Beep beep, I'm an entitled boy.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So we're towing your trucks. Yeah.
That's why I wish that like Joe Biden was half as cool as like conservatives made him out to be. With like, oh, he's gonna steal all of our trucks and we'll be driving electric smart cars. I'm like, that would be fine.
That'd be
like, could
fucking
we
rad.
like we could move towards that. I'm not saying you have to get rid of every truck or we all have to drive electric smart cars, but like I'm just saying like. If Joe Biden was like, "Hey, here's your electric smart car," that's one more car than I currently have. It wouldn't harm me.
Yeah.
I mean, if I came to power, I think if you would have to write an essay to justify your pickup truck.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Right, and it also cannot be shaped like a refrigerator. Like, there's that. Yeah.
Well, I think we should make trucks just look dorky. I think that there should be like a law that like trucks have to kind of look like the pocket protector of vehicles, but they're still just as useful, right? Like you can own a pickup truck, or mini trucks don't count. You can like Toyota, like little mini trucks or whatever, like a Nissan hardbody. Absolutely, you should be able to put Daytons on that thing. Hydros, go as hard as possible.
Yeah,
but like big trucks, it should only look dorky, just to negate kind of the perceived status. So it's like, yeah, I mean, you can have a big truck and like you can use it for work, but it's got to have like the front end off like a Ram ProMaster or something. It can't be cool looking.
Right.
It's got to look kind of silly. It can only come with unpainted bumpers. It only has an AM/FM stereo. You can't have like.
It can only be cab over.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'm in.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All vinyl interior. Yeah. Yeah.
God, I would actually buy that is the thing.
My first car, Nissan hardbody, had it. 88 Nissan pickup truck.
I mean, we're just essentially describing a large K truck. Like just put the copy machine on 250% and hit.
Yeah. And that's fine. Yeah, I'm good with that. Yeah. I don't know. I love those like bed size comparisons for like the like my Nissan hardbody that I had when I was 16, right? My 88 Nissan, like that bed size comparison to like a
King Ranch.
Yeah, right? Yeah, like guess who can haul full sheets of plywood, motherfuckers? Yeah. This guy. Yeah, but I don't know. Well, I'm super excited to read the article. Absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, I'm sorry that it wasn't live at the moment of speaking, but I think it'll be really good. I think people will like it, and that's the other thing too. Is like this should be another piece that non-enthusiasts can read and show people. And I make a pitch at the end to enthusiasts to basically say like, hey, I love fast cars. I've driven a bunch of big trucks. I had a Suburban. I loved it. I understand the appeal. But, and I'm not saying that like the only solution is individual action. I'm not saying like, oh, just go sell your truck and that will fix everything. What I'm saying is, we need to help support the system, try to become healthier. Right. And I think that's kind of like the only thing you really can do at this point. So, but on the note of cars being dorky or not, I talked about my book really quick.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Cool. I did. I was trying to pull it up earlier because I could screen share a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Because do you want to just see my InDesign?
If you're okay showing it on the YouTube, sure.
I think I can at least share like a little bit because I realized that like we don't have a ton of samples on the site because why is this not working? Because it's been changing a decent amount.
Okay.
Because we're trying to get printing done basically. So we have what the final version is going to look like, but we didn't get like. I haven't shared a ton of that also because I wanted to be like kind of surprised, but like, I mean, why not show it off? Give me 1 second so I can find it on my computer.
Yeah.
It's called We Deserve This. I've worked on it for 2 years. I shot it in 4 states. There are 21 cars and 21 women in it. Trans femmes. entirely. I told them basically, the thing about it is like, there's been a little bit of like commercial involvement, like Subaru, Acura, Chevy all gave me like cars for it, which was cool.
Nice.
But it's not really, I didn't come at it from like a traditional fashion magazine perspective. It was mostly just like, tell me how you want to dress. Tell me what you feel comfortable in. Let's work with your style inherently. And then I'll find a car that matches.
Oh, that's really cool.
So about half the shoots were with were transitions with their own personal cars, and then about half of them were ones that I went and found a car that kind of matched the vibe.
Nice.
That's super fun. I mean, just anybody that you would know to be like, what car? If I could put you in front of any car and photograph you, that's a really cool idea.
Yeah,
that's a fun game.
I thought it was pretty fun. Let's see if this works. Can I screen share on here? Can you see?
You should be
able to.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. I mean, and the viewers will presumably also be able to see it. Hopefully,
I'll just mess with like the little window pinning on our side, and it'll get the majority.
Both of them will be very
yes
appreciated.
Let me see if this actually works. It does. Cool. I'll just share a few little pages.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah, it's fun.
We've never had a hashtag exclusive before.
Yeah, exclusive. Yeah.
Yeah, why not? I think that'd be cool. Here we go. This is like a sample spread. It's again, this isn't the final version, so what people will get was slightly different. Hopefully, my publisher doesn't kill me. You can tell this is the version where I had just added in the page numbers because they're on a wrong colored square.
Gotcha.
This is if anybody from Adobe is listening, I would like to have some words about InDesign. But this is like a very similar version to kind of what we were doing. This is a pre-final layout, but this is more or less the format. So I was in Dallas. I had my friend Ash at Texas Vintage Import, which is where I bought my van from. He was doing some work on it for me before I moved away from Houston. So this was 2.5 years ago. And this was my loaner car he gave me because he's cool.
Jesus, you got an MR2 loaner.
It was an SW20 with the Beams engine in it too. So it was a JDM import 3SGE. It was, I swear to God, one of the most beautiful, just perfectly cohesive cars, right? Like every part of it worked in concert. If you modified anything on this, you were just losing the whole point on the street, right? Like everything worked ideally, and I swear to God, it was the only mid-engine car I've ever felt comfortable actually swinging the rear on. Like I was steering by throttle with this thing by the end of the week that I had it, because it was amazing. Just so intuitive. Oh, I loved this thing.
It's a great spec too, like that color, those wheels. That looks great.
Yeah. And so I met up with my friend who was in Dallas, Claire, who, she lives in Seattle now too, and we've kind of been in each other's lives for a while. But I was like, oh, we got some time to kill. We're going to dinner tonight or whatever. Let's do something fun. Let's go shoot some pictures or whatever. And so I was like, let's do a 90s thing. And so she picked out a 90s outfit. We went to, this is the DART train in Dallas. Yellow is her whole color coordination thing usually. So I was like, cool, we'll do the train that's yellow. She brought her Fjallraven. She's got the Polaroid camera. And we'll just do a shoot. And then this was before I had the concept of the book, right? It was just me doing a series of pictures that I thought was fun. And then I was like, I got these and I was like, oh my God, this is super cool. And I started playing with different formats for it and stuff. And so then the next week I hit up my friend Roxy and I borrowed this car from Ash, which is a Toyota Supra Turbo A. So this is the homologation version for Group A racing that they made 500 of. It is one of 4 in America. Absolutely absurd. They made them for $19.89 only.
Thing.
I reviewed this car. There's a story on the drive about it from a few years ago where I did a whole car review of it. Absolutely absurdly cool. But it's all blacked out and it's very 80s, 90s. And, my friend had kind of a heroin chic thing going on. Mm-hmm. And I was like, let's do a second shoot. Let's see what this becomes if I do a couple of these. And so we did this one together. And then I was like, oh, okay. Well, now I need to make this into something a bit more. And so then from there, I just kept going. And so, this one is actually the first one I did with a girl who owns her car. She doesn't have this one anymore because somebody ran into it. She has a different Protege Vive that has all of the fast bits off of this one in it. But she was like, I love this car. I wrote in the text here, she's been working on it since she came out. Basically, it's been her like nonstop transition project. And so like, it's kind of, she's modified it like as she's become herself. And so like, that was when I was like, oh, you can tie this to like a person's sense of self.
Yeah.
Cool. And I think that this is like, again, the kind of that blending of automotive culture as, journey through life, as vehicle for personal stories and narratives, and like featuring the car too. So it just kind of went from there. And then like, and I managed to get some really cool shit.
An incredible Jack E-Type.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, that one was not bad. I'm not going to lie. I was pretty happy about that. Give me a second. I wonder if I can remember what page it's on. Because there is one in here that's like an absolute, it's the biggest flex you could possibly imagine.
We're here for it.
I love the like 60s pattern dress with the E-Type.
Oh yeah, no, she absolutely understood the assignment. I was like, we had this, the E-Type, and then a little bit of this here was a MGA. And so I was like, we could use one of these. And she was like, cool, I'll do like a 60s mod thing. Just nailed it. Absolutely incredible. That's and every single page, by the way, has like these little text boxes, the quote from the person who I shot. So, she gets to talk about her sense of style, or like this girl talked about like little puppies because she thought it was cute. Like it ranges from like the incredibly serious to the very lighthearted. And I think that's part of the fun of it, is like the whole point of this project for me was, there are a lot of facets of why I made it, but the thing that kept the momentum going was there's not really a lot of good documentation by us for us of our community in the moment we're currently living in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this feels like something that could be like a primary document of like, this is what trans life in the 2020s looked like. That's part of the reason it was so important for me to do this as a physical book instead of doing it as a PDF or something. Like my other self-portraits book or whatever was kind of a fun, get me out of the house in Idaho, try some fun new techniques with self-portraiture, imagine landscapes as like portraiture scenes without people in them, all that kind of stuff. This was, basically I want this to go as wide as possible. I want there to be a copy of this book on every continent on Earth, because I think that, preservation of this era and like of the people that I care about and of the community I care about is important. And so like that, I think, is kind of the angle for that. Let me see if this is the correct page. The other part that is, of course, incredibly important to me here is going insanely hard, which is why I got a BAC back Bono R.
Hell
so, yes.
I didn't even know those existed in the US.
Well, that's the only one with plates on it.
Okay.
So, I mean,
hell yeah.
They don't, unless you know the guy that I know.
Nice.
Yeah.
So he was super cool. It was like, he actually gave me 2 cars for this book. He gave me this one, and he also gave me a bright purple Huracan STO.
That's amazing.
Wow.
But like, he super cool. That's like this has been one of the more fun parts of this book, has been to be like, oh, I have these connections, and it's like, this matters to me. We can do like a really cool thing. I'll do some pictures for you. Like, do you mind if I let somebody pose in your car for like an hour or two, whatever? And usually people are like, sweet. They're into the project, which I think is also part of what's cool, right? Like this project is made possible by the car community, even though I would say that the main focus has tended more towards being on the trans community, but people are just into it, right? Like they're like, oh, this is cool. I totally get it. Yeah. Like, this is how I think about cars as well. And so it's been this very cool collaboration. Like, I didn't think I'd ever get to blend these two cultures together. And it's been fun too, but yeah, this is the flex.
Yeah.
I'll stop. I will stop sharing spoilers now, so my publisher doesn't break into my house in the night.
Yeah, don't stop on our account, but don't get yourself in trouble
just
either.
through the paper screen behind you, like some hands reach through. Like pull you. Yeah. Oh, Victoria's gone now. Okay.
Again.
Yeah. Can you just put Bert on, please?
With like the please hold here, but the center circle is replaced by Bert's face.
Yes. Can I ask, was there like a genesis moment for the title? Like, what We Deserve This. It's such a succinct and wonderful title for the book.
I think it was somewhere between So I think what was crucial is that shoot where I shot with the Protege 5, that girl, that was a trip to the Bay Area. I got 3 shoots done that weekend. That weekend I shot with, well, no, I'm going to just present it again. You can get mad at me. It's okay. I have to share this because it's very important, actually. It's emotional too, so I apologize in advance for that. Yeah. So Laura, this is I met her because of the book. Her name is Lauren. This was her Porsche. So she bought a 911S in, I think it was 1986. It was part of the Porsche Club of America, had tracked it, had daily driven it. She came out in, I want to say 2001 or 2. So this is like way back. It was not good. Yeah. It's never been good, but that was not good. Yeah. She was 40 at the time, and basically doing that blew up her life, because like that's exactly what happened back then. You didn't just like, in the modern era, it's very difficult still, but like there's the possibility of at least kind of carrying forward with your life. I kind of inadvertently blew mine up anyway, but I didn't necessarily have to. There's an option where you kind of like you can, family members might understand, relationships might last. And jobs are usually a lot more permissive about it. But like back then, I don't think that was really the case very much. So she blew up her life. And this was the only thing she kept, right? Was this car. And so she rebuilt her life back up. When I met her, she was in her 60s. She was incredibly cool. She unfortunately passed away like 3 months ago.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we had just talked too about like she was signing the releases and stuff for this, and I was very excited for her to see it. But the whole reason that I think I leaned towards We Deserve This was because, she's just absolutely been a car enthusiast forever. She was always a car enthusiast. And she said, a lot of when she initially came out, she kind of stepped away from like track days and PCA stuff and modifying her car because like there was no, the expectation basically was you transitioned and you became like a submissive housewife. Like you were not supposed to still enjoy anything that could be perceived as masculine because of the reflection it would have on you. Right. And so like she talked about how she liked this book project and she wanted to be part of it because it was a cool concept to like tell other trans women that are coming out that like you don't have to give up this massive part of your life. You can still enjoy the things you've enjoyed. And so around then I was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, this is like, this is what like my community deserves. Like we deserve to be told like you can enjoy the things you want. We deserve to be seen successful, happy, old. Like meeting her was huge for me because I really, there are not a lot of old trans femmes, at least not in the circles I've been in. And just generally there aren't, because like, even if you survive or whatever, going through these, like these eras of like the 90s and the early thousands, like stealth was kind of the only real survival strategy. And so like that you don't really talk about it. Like our generation getting to be like very out and proud about it, I think is like a long-term strategy, one where I can like make this book and still have like a desk job at an automotive publication is, I think, relatively new. And so like this is the whole book is kind of like my attempt to be like, yeah, this is actually what we should have. This is the world we should be able to envision for ourselves, where we can just do this, and this is accepted as a natural way of being. And the reception to the book has been really good. So it's been like really nice to see that, because it largely has been treated as like an empowering, happy, collaborative thing. But that was I think a lot of it for me is, just like we haven't always had this. We have to keep fighting tooth and nail to make sure we still have it. But no matter what, we'll always deserve it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I think a thing that I think everybody deserves is the idea that there's not just one way to be anything, right? Like there's not,
right.
There's not one way for me to be, a straight white, 40-year-old either, like there's lots of ways to be lots of people. And I think that the other thing too is, one thing that you mentioned earlier is like, there's not a lot of trans voices. Like the ratio right now of people talking about the trans community to the trans community talking about the trans community is like real way out of fucking whack.
Oh yeah. Like this is New York Times has been a huge part of a lot of trans caravans, and they have not actually had a trans columnist talk on their op-ed pages in about 6 months, a year. It's been a while.
Right.
Yeah.
It's been a ratio of like 1 to 30 or something. For every 30 articles they run by a cis person worrying about us, they run like one by a trans person. And the trans person's article usually takes a tone of, "For the love of God, please let us live." And the cis person's like, "Well, we've got some questions."
Right. Right.
But yeah, I think that's.
We just got to wait. Eventually, the culture war carousel will come back around, and they'll worry about a different fucking zebra going up and down, and they'll be like, "Okay, we'll fixate on this one now."
I hope so, and I think like pre Roe v. Wade, I would have bought that. I think the problem is that we're seeing regression across. Like, it's not just trans people. I think that we're kind of like the bulwark because we make up 0.6% of the population.
Yeah,
we do not fit neatly into narratives about gender in America in general, which is already a very contentious topic. And there's, I think to a lot of people, like, it is such a Rubicon to cross that it leads to fertile ground for discourse, because they don't fully understand any of it. I mean, not even medically, just like conceptually.
Right.
But because you're seeing it tied in with abortion rights getting rolled back, and people calling for the end of no-fault divorce.
Yeah.
I think it's better contextualized as like part of a very broad conservative wave to try to like, I don't think that this is one that we can just kind of like hope that things go away on, or like it moves on to another thing. And I think the crucial way that I look at it too is like, again, and I think that you may be picking up on something about my political leanings, but like the liberation of us all is required. Like we all need to have equal rights for us to all have equal rights. You can't segment this. Like you look at like, the way that like trans athletes in sports are treated, and it often is similarly reflected, if not outright influenced by racism in sports. Black women in the Olympics get treated completely differently than white women in the Olympics. You look at the way that women in the workforce are treated, and how trans women, are conceptualized of in schools and workplaces or whatever. And it's very similar to arguments about misogyny. A lot of the arguments about us having relationships is similar to anti-gay marriage stuff. It is all intertwined.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I like looking at systems.
Yeah. No, right? Like, because I think that I that resonates with me, because when I see like Trump's whole insanely shitty, like, make America great again, that fucking again I view as an entire system. Right?
Yeah.
An entire, that just that one fucking word is a construct that that they all wish to move towards and fit themselves in, and identify as a structure that they feel comfortable in, and that they are upset that somebody exists outside of that fucking rigid structure. Right.
Yeah.
And so
somebody exists outside the rigid structure of your very tall pickup truck.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I think that like you could probably probe some of these people and they might agree on like some of the problems.
Yeah.
They just think that they're good instead of bad.
Right.
People who are arguing for the end of no-fault divorce, which is I think that people are kind of like playing it off as a joke, but like I've seen the people advocating it. It's not a joke. They seriously want to come for it. Or like banning birth control entirely or whatever. Right. Like, they're looking at this as like they see the fact that people can get abortions as a problem instead of a miracle of modern science.
For sure, there's a lot of people out there who like, you're like, well, let's run this argument out, and they're like, no, we have, and that's where we're at.
Yeah, we're still there. Yeah, we have all the information. Yeah, we're still. Yeah.
We've already got the matching hats, so we know.
Well, and it's the same problem that I've run into with like trans, like talking about trans stuff with a very. I would say that like half of what I do is like I meet people who have no idea about anything, and so I just tell them like the basic facts of like what my life is like, or like what my community is like, and usually they're like, huh, interesting, and I think that they mostly go about their lives, which is exactly what we all want.
Right.
Some of those people turn into advocates. Some of them, largely stay on the sidelines. It's fine. Like, not everybody has to be a tireless advocate for everything. I think that it's completely fine to just be like, yeah, let them do what they want. That's cool. But then there is a loud vocal minority that is just very much like there is no way to argue out of it. There is no like I could tell somebody like, yeah, I'm happier and my life is better and everybody I know is like this too, and we're more productive to society. There's no way I could have been an auto journalist before I came out. I know this because I wasn't an automotive journalist before I came out. But like if you want to talk about like economic impact, like my life is substantially more like revenue generating now, I guess. Like, it does have societal benefits for everybody involved, but they don't care. Like my existence is still a failure mode for them. And so those are the people you got to be like, all right, well, your viewpoint sucks. So shut the fuck up.
Well, because I think they think that you're taking something from them, right? You're taking a thing. They think that because they're the main character. They're
big rigid box.
Yes. And if you take, that's the thing about a rigid. Yeah, that's the thing about a rigid box is if you take a piece out of it, it doesn't work anymore. Whereas, if it's always a blob, then it's okay.
Right.
Like trans women have been pissing off everybody forever about this because like if you read like I think it was Saint Augustine, like in like 600 was like bitching about the galley in like Italy, in like Rome in like the year 600 in galley were like the historical trans women. Basically they were like the they say priestesses, but like they fulfilled they were allowed like a little fringe role in society, but like it's seething about it, like 1500 years ago. Right. So like we've always possessed the ability to make uptight people incredibly upset. I hope to carry on this long sacred tradition of my people.
Me too.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I want to put a bow on it because I read something a little bit ago. It was just an Instagram comment that I came across in passing, and so that actor Lennon Parham, she was on a show called Best Friends Forever, and she does a bunch of stuff with Jessica St. Clair. Like she's hilarious. She was on Veep. She was talking about a show that she was just wrapping like the third season on, and she used the term constellation of positive individuals in her life, right? And it landed on me that it was just such a beautiful way to view all of these contacts that we've been able to make through like doing the podcast and meeting individuals and just reaching out and just wanting to know more about people, just wanting to engage with people, seeing them do incredible stuff that we love. And we're just so happy to have you as this brilliant star in like the constellation of positive people that we have in our lives. And it's really, really shitty that some people have views that would prevent them from being able to recognize you as that. And I just want to call it out that we're very, very thankful to have you as that point of light in our lives.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And I'm glad we met. I love coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you are our most frequent. You're tied for our most frequent guest with Doug DeMuro.
Yeah.
On this show.
Yeah.
It's
really cool.
Yeah. And as our vice president of earnestness put it, I mean, like,
I'm going to come with the emotions, Victoria. I had therapy a couple days ago. It was a heavy session. Yeah. We went long. My therapist went overtime. Yeah.
I feel that entirely.
Yeah.
I don't know. I appreciate it. It's nice to I think it is nice to interact with other earnest people who give a shit. I think that's like the biggest thing is like, if you can tell when somebody cares about the world they live in and the other people in it, and that's what I appreciate.
Yeah.
What I appreciate it's about you.
Well, let's undercut that with some silliness and play a license plate game and then let you go.
Okay. All right. That sounds good.
Yes.
I was getting a little sentimental.
Yeah. That's okay. We do have a license plate game for you, and it's Honda themed.
Gonna have a little
beautiful
sweet and salt.
Yes. So this one, Ian did see.
I'm not seeing anything.
Yeah,
we haven't shared it yet.
Yeah. Okay, I'll share it in a second. Yeah.
So for anyone who's new for this, maybe you're finding this because Victoria is on and she's a superstar. This is a highlights magazine matchy match. So we're gonna get 3 pictures of cars that have vanity plates, but their license plates are blacked out, and then we have to match the text of the vanity plate with the car.
Yes. So this one is called "So Your Girlfriend Drives a Honda." Okay. All right.
All right.
Here we go. So, yep.
I think this is a tricky one. I think this is a hard one. We're not being nice to our guest.
Oh, interesting.
They're all civics.
Yeah.
Well, they have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have. Is that one's also a Type R, or is that a Sport with a wing on it?
You know,
yeah, I think it might be a Type R, but can we do a zoom in and enhancy?
It's got the center exhaust, but it's got two pipes.
That's what I was wondering too.
And then it's got, I don't know if that's a post or pre-facelift. Like, I think that's a Type R. Oh my God, how am I not? Wait, scroll up.
Yeah,
go up a little bit. Okay, no, there's no like double third brake light. I think that's actually a Type R. I wanted to make sure it wasn't like somebody attempting to make it look like a Type R.
An SI Type R, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a Type R in like titanium.
I'm looking it up really fast.
Whatever, gray, silver.
Yeah.
We've got.
I don't remember those little cuts on the top of the bumper there. Oh yeah, okay. That was a 2017 update. That's why I don't know it. I only know it's whatever. It's either pre or post facelift, but it is actually a Type R. Okay, so we can assume that's a Type R. The other one is a Type R.
Okay. Yeah. All right, and then in the middle we've got like an older SI. What generation is that?
That's a 9th.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then another Type R on the bottom in white.
Yes.
Another big wang on the back.
And the plates that you get to match up are just Civic. Somebody got the plate Civic. Can you decode the middle one, Victoria? Because
Hondaddy.
See, yeah, I read it and I was like, Honda dead. It didn't hit. I
think Hondaddy is a great plate.
Yeah. That is actually a good plate.
Right?
I'll give it to him.
And then lastly, we had MC Honda.
Yeah. Mick Honda.
Yeah. For
MC
some reason,
Honda?
I read MC Honda and I think of like MC Chris, right? Like, they would show up on like Aqua Teen Hunger Force and, stuff like that. Yeah.
Uh-huh. They're just MC rap Asher. Only about VTech.
Yes. Yeah. Variable timing in the cadence.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. This one is pretty challenging.
Let's see if we got any other clues. Yeah. Right. Who's throwing this kind of stripe on their Civic?
I don't hate it is the thing. Like,
right?
It doesn't, like, none of these are done like in what I would like. The Type R's are just clean Type R's.
Yeah.
And then that's I don't see the wheels or whatever, but like that's not terrible. I'm a big proponent of throwing a little vinyl on a car. Makes
right. What's the wheel situation on the bottom one? Is that those stock wheels?
Yeah, those are stock.
Okay.
Nice. Okay.
So I mean, these are like pretty. Yeah, these are just stock, mostly stock Hondas, which is what makes it tricky. Because if they were like super modified or something, you'd be like, oh well, I would say that whoever's. I would guess that like one of the Type R's is Hondaddy.
Okay.
And I don't know. I'm going to say the gray one just because I feel like that's not quite classy enough for somebody who's got the championship white Type R, because that is the correct choice for a Honda. And also the red badge, because they did the red badge swap on that. So like that's.
See, this is what
I would say the white one says Civic.
Okay.
And then the gray SI is MC Honda.
Okay.
I want to give you one context clue, which is not clue. It's just a context thing, which is I took the picture of the white one.
Okay.
And it was at the racetrack. I don't know if that changes your thinking at all.
I think that like if I was the only thing is like the Civic on top is debadged, and getting Civic plate with no Civic badge is kind of cool.
I was going to ask if the debadging was getting factored into the equation.
And so like I mean.
One's tough.
I just think that it would be so. I think it'd be so funny to own a Honda Civic and get the license plate Civic.
So
I've been trying to figure out like what I'm going to get for my plate on the car I don't own, and like it's been very fun. So just like everything is on the table. I think these are all pretty.
Yeah.
If you could get just hypothetical on a plate, then it would work perfectly for your hypothetical car.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? At this point,
how can I truncate that? HYPTHEL maybe?
Yeah.
I guess I'll say, okay, so maybe Civic on top, and then then MC Honda in the middle and Daddy on the bottom. Let's
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
I've already seen these, so I can't play with you.
Yeah. Victoria, I got to tell you, you got the bottom one right. That is Daddy. And then we got Civic from our buddy Pat. Sent that in.
Civic on the SI.
I know, right?
Like that goes. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. And then I saw MC Honda in traffic.
Plate. Maybe that's why they got it. Nobody actually lives in Connecticut, I thought.
I actually saw somebody with a Civic plate here in Denver. And it was that thing of like, I saw them going up like one of those flyover highway overpasses as I was going the other way. And it was like, no! Like slow motion, trying to get my phone off of the fucking phone holder.
Furious scene with Paul Walker in the Supra.
Yes. Yeah. Just going the other way. I'm crying. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. But you did
I don't
great.
know if you get inverted plates in Colorado. That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
The white text on the green. That's cool.
It's what the real truth of the matter is. Colorado has been going through a real identity crisis with the plates lately. And I feel like we've gone through, I've lived here, 13 years almost. And I think we've gone through, I'm going to say 75 different plate variations in that time. It has been weird.
Yeah.
Montana's like this too. If you actually live in Montana, like everybody sees Montana plates, they're always that black plate.
Yeah.
But if you when I was in Idaho, I was like an hour from Montana. If you're in Montana, I swear to God, vanity plates must be free because almost everyone has one. And they have no less than like 40 different designs. I would literally see cars and be like, what state is that from? And it's just another Montana.
Yeah.
I remember I was at a Costco gas station and every single car within sight of me had a Montana plate that was a different design.
Yeah, I believe it. And I feel like Colorado's getting that, but even like the default design has been changing a lot over the last few years. And it's been
Ohio did that too. They kept making it uglier.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And now they've gone to, it's like black with white lettering, but it looks like very flat and it's all for like cameras. So like cameras don't reflect off of it and stuff. So it's like this matte, it looks like somebody like printed a license plate at home.
Yeah.
It looks terrible.
Yeah, like you photosharded a license plate, and this is what you get.
I saw one of those sovereign citizen plates, and it looked way better.
God.
And I was like,
he got a picture of it. Yeah.
I have seen a few of them. There's actually someone at my kid's school with a sovereign citizen license plate, and I want to know everything.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, there's probably an interesting story about custody there too.
I'm sure. I'm sure. And don't worry. I saw him on the way to school drop off fly by me in the bus lane. So yeah.
My God.
Oh,
amazing. Anyway.
Wow. Well, I love that.
I can't give any more details.
Yeah. If you have another 7 hours, we could go hard on the sovereign citizen.
Oh,
community.
Yeah. Yes.
But God damn it. Yeah. And this one was very tough. Absolutely great job.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Victoria, we went long, so I appreciate all of your time that you
sorry about
spent with us today. No. This was a great conversation. This is why we like having you on.
Yeah.
Because it's always a lot of fun. And as, again, Vice President in charge of earnestness said earlier, it has really, truly been awesome to see you kind of like finding your voice over the last few years as an automotive journalist. And, we're going to continue to be effusive about your writing and all of that. Yeah. And I'm really looking forward to the lookbook because I think it's really, really cool.
Thank you.
And everybody who is listening to this is required to order one as well.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I'll kick you off. YouTube.
Really quick, actually, if you're an international buyer, we're working on that. Don't buy one yet. We know the shipping's crazy. We're going to fix it.
Okay.
That's my note if you live anywhere besides the United States.
We do surprisingly.
We're going. Oh yeah,
we do surprisingly well in Serbia. Really.
It's cool. I mean, like, again, please, it's for everybody. But we'll get it shipped to you cheaper than what it currently is. I promise you.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Nice.
That's my final note. We can be done now. I'm sorry.
No. Yeah. Well, so tell people where to go to find your writing, where to go to find,
Oh,
what you're up to.
You can read everything I'm doing at motor1.com because that's where I'm at all the time now. I'm hopefully doing some more videos with this. I did a video review of the Lexus GX and with my coworker, Brett Evans. I'm going to be hopefully doing a lot more of that in the near future. So I'll be on YouTube some as well. I'm on Blue Sky as victoriascott.bsky.social. I use Instagram. You can just link that. It's fine. I post a film picture every week. It's whatever.
Yeah, Remuri Racing, right?
Yes, yeah. And then I've got a Patreon that I post pictures to ideally every day. I think, and then my book is going to be available at my publisher, Carrera Books. And later on, once we've got the solid pre-order date set, we've got all the production completely finalized. We'll have it on Amazon as well.
Sweet.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Dave.
Yeah.
I think we did a car show.
We did. We actually talked about cars.
Like a lot.
Yeah.
Victoria, thank you again so much. This was a lot of fun as always. And again, feel free to invite yourself on whenever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else, thank you. We love you. Goodbye.